Welcome to my Sitecode Diaries, your go-to channel for everything in Sitecode, DXP and beyond. Your ultimate guide to digital experience excellence. I am Jitendra Ganekar and this is our special video series React Fundamentals and Beyond. Today we are diving into three core concepts that makes React tick: state, props and hooks. Whether you are new to React or brushing up, this quick breakdown will supercharge your front-end development journey. So stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's level up your React skills together. Let's begin by exploring one of the core concepts in React, that is state. It's the foundation for building dynamic and interactive components in React. So let's dive in. A state is a variable that exists inside a component. It cannot be accessed or modified outside the component, and it is used only within the component itself. Think of it as a private data that drives the behavior of a component. It's simply in JavaScript if you have used a variable, so it is similar like a variable, but it can use inside only the component, inside the component only. Let's see state in action with a simple example. Imagine a like button on social media post. So this is a social media post, and where you have this like button. Imagine that we have to use that like button, and we on click of like button the count should get increased. That is your user functionality. The state keeps the track of the number of likes. So what is state here? What you are going to use is the key. It keeps the track of the number of likes. Button click, each button click will increase the like count. And finally, the display updates automatically when the state changes. So whenever the state will change, the state change will get automatically updated on the screen. That is your general functionality. Here the state will be used. Let's see some characteristic of the state. Here the data is passed within the component only. Okay. State is a mutable, meaning it can be modified. And finally, the state is both readable and writable, allowing dynamic updates. So in summary, if I summarize, a state is a variable that exists inside a component that cannot be accessed and modified outside the component and can only be used inside the component. If you want to remember what it is, the simple language it's used when you are using a JavaScript, there are the variables are used. So that variable is nothing but the state here. Next up, we have props. Props help components communicate and share data effectively. Let's take a closer look. Props is a short form of a properties. It allows us to pass information to a component. They act as an input that dynamically update content and customize how a component behaves. Let's take the same example what we have seen, a social media post. You might need the same like button for a text post, video or image. So this like functionality which was, in fact, you can see all other functionality. You might need that on this is the video which you are seeing, or maybe you have a post or an article on which you will need this functionality. You might need, you have an image, there also you need this functionality. So instead of writing the same code for each, you can create a common reusable component to calculate the number of likes. By using props, you can pass the data between the reusable components and different blocks of a code, text or video or image post. So think of a prop as a little package of information. For example, on this blog page, basically, each section likes articles, photos or videos send a specific information such as a like count and a description to a button component using button component using the props. So props can be used to send information like count here, like count and the description that can be passed to the button component using the props. So here are some key characteristics of the props. Props allows data to be passed from one component to another. They are immutable, meaning they cannot be modified. Props can be used in both state and functional component. And lastly, props are read-only, ensuring data flow in a single direction only. So data is flowed only in single direction. So this is because props are read-only. They cannot be changed in the different component. So these are the props.
Now that we have introduced state and props, let's see them in action with a simple example. Watch how they work together seamlessly.
So it is the first file, blog post. This component receives a property such as title, content, and initial link. So if you see here, property, it is getting received and it is getting title, content, and initial likes from its parent component. So whenever the parent component will call it, it will get these three things. These properties are then passed down to the like button component, allowing it to display and manage likes. So now we have the like button JS file. Here we use a React useState hook to create a state variable called likes and initialize it with the prop.initialLike. So if you see here also we are using a prop. So this blog post is passing this to like button here. Okay, again it's a prop here. Then we are using a useState. This is a hook. So we are going to see what is hooks in next section. So it is using a hook state and it initialize the initial value as a prop.initial likes. It's a variable which is defined here likes. So that is your state. Okay, and set like is setting up your like function. Okay, likes increase, it is actually increasing the likes. So handle function is triggered when the button is clicked and updating the like state, as the state updates the number of likes it display dynamically. So in this handle like, this will be called on click of a button. So if you see here button on click handle like, so it will call this function and there your state will change, state likes, right? Your state will change like plus 1, it will increase the like. Okay, so this is how your like button will work. And finally you have the your app.js, that is your parent component. This is where you will bring everything together here. The blog post component is rendered here and props like title, content, and initial likes are passed to it. So these props flow from the parent to child component and ensuring data is communicated seamlessly. So if you see here app.js, here if you see blog post here, this is your component and you are passing title, content, and initial likes, that is your props. So you are passing title, content, and initial likes is 0. Okay, so this is how the props are used. So these are the props where you are passing the data to the another component, from this component to another component. Here also you are passing the like button. If you see here like button, we are passing the initial likes, that is prop.initial like, that is also we are passing it to like button here. Okay, and which is getting increasing. Then this set, if you see here, this is your state. Okay, so here likes is your state and state set likes is increasing or updating your state. So this is how state and prop works. So let's recap. A useState hook is used in the like button component to manage the like state. The handle like function updates the state when the button is clicked. The block components receive prop as like a title and initial likes from its parent app.js. And finally, these props are passed to the like button component to initializing the like. So this is how you can take an example of simple state and prop example, a code example.
Why hooks? That's the question. Let's uncover what makes hooks such a game changer in the React development.
So React hooks were introduced to address some common pain points developers face with the class component. So this slide will illustrate the problem step by step with a code example for clarity. And let's get started by looking at our code. So First, here we are importing the React and the component class at the top. So here we are importing it. So this is the class component, not the functional component. Next, we define our class component name data feature. So this is our class component name data feature. So in this, we initialize the state with two properties, data and empty array, and loading a boolean set to true. So data and loading. In the component did mount lifecycle method, we call the fetch data method to start fetching data as soon as the component mounts. So this is our component did mount lifecycle method. Here we are calling fetch data to fetch the data. The fetch data method is an asynchronous function that fetches the data from an API. If the data is successfully fetched, it updates the state with the fetch data and sets loading to false. If there is an error, it logs the error and set loading to false. So you can see the complete code here. Okay, it's a asynchronous method. In the render method, we conditionally display a loading message if the loading is true. If loading is false, we display the fetch data in a list. So here is the render method and here is the condition. Okay. So here we have a class component which is managing the state using useState. So we have a set state which is managing the state here. So basically updating the data. You see your data. So it is managing the state, your data and loading. The state has a two variables, data and loading, and which is getting managed here is the state. Okay. So this is become quite difficult or a cumbersome for a complex application. For this might look simple, but for a complex application it might be a difficult one to do or cumbersome to do. So let us see the problem which we might face because of this method, this way of writing a code. First thing is a complex state management. So class components require you to use this dot state and set state, which can make managing the state unnecessarily complex, especially when dealing with the multiple state variables. So you have only a single variable, but if you have a multiple state variable and every time using the this dot state and set state, that will make your logic very complex. So complex state management, managing your states are very complex in the class method. Then we have a redundant lifecycle method. So the component did mount method, which we are using here as a lifecycle method, okay, where it handles the data fetching here. So we are fetching the data. However, managing the lifecycle events like this can make your logic scattered and hard to follow. So it can be in this logic where we are doing with the lifecycle, it can be scattered and maybe difficult to follow. That is our second problem, that redundant lifecycle methods. The third is a verbose and repetitive code. So every time the state changes, we use this dot state. Over time, this leads to a verbose and repetitive code. Error handling like this, in this example, what we are given, can add even more boilerplate. So this is very difficult, like verbose and repetitive code. Can see the same thing, we need to add it again and again, like this dot set state we have to use again and again. That can be a cause of verbose and repetitive code. Then we have a handling side effect. Handling side effects such as a data fetching is tightly coupled to the lifecycle method. So now we can see the fetch data is tightly coupled to the component did mount, which is a lifecycle method. So handling side effect is such as a data fetching is tightly coupled to lifecycle method, which limits reusability and complicates the debugging. So as soon as our function will get tightly coupled with the component, it cannot be reused. Okay, so that's the key thing here, because what we are doing in the React is a component based development, and why we are creating a component, we want to reuse those components. Okay, but due to the tight coupling, it will get difficult to do that. So handling side effect is a key problem here. and at the end, limited reusability. So as we have discussed right now, so finally the logic here is a tightly bound to the this component. We already discussed it is tightly bound. Okay, the logic is tightly bound to the component, and reusing it in the another component will require duplication, which is both error prone and inefficient also. So limited reusability. So data fetching logic is tightly coupled with the component, making reuse cumbersome. So these are the problems which are we are facing in the which where we were facing in the class components when we are used to write a class component. So since React 16.8, okay, hooks are introduced. So React hooks address all these issues by providing a simpler, more flexible way to handle state, side effect, and logic reusability in functional component. In the next slide, we will see how hook simplifies this example.
Hooks offer an elegant solution to modern React challenges. Let's see how Hooks simplifies your code and improve your components.
So the same component which we have written in the class as a class component in last slide, now we are rewritten it in the functional component. Okay, so now as you can see in this slide, now the code is now written within the functional component with React hooks like useState and useEffect. So let's get started by looking at our code first. We imported a React and the necessary hook here. So if you see this line, we have a React where we are imported the useState and useEffect hooks from the React. These hooks will help us manage state and side effect in our functional component. Next, we define our functional component named data feature. So here is a data feature. Okay, in the component we use useState hook to initialize three pieces of a state: data as an empty array, loading as a true, and error as a false. So here if you see, three variables are here: data, loading, and error. So we are using useState, the hook. Here we are setting up the values. So first is set data, it's a blank array. Then we are setting the loading as useState is our hook, true, error is a false. Okay. Then we use the useEffect hook to handle side effect in our component, and this hook runs once when the component mounts, and thanks to the empty dependency array inside a useEffect, we define and call an asynchronous function fetch data to fetch data from API. So this is your useEffect. So this hook will run when the component mounts. Okay, and we have a empty dependency array inside a useEffect. So we define and call an asynchronous method fetch data here, which is fetching your data. The fetch data function uses a fetch to make a GET request to API. The response is converted to the JSON and stored in the data state. If the fetch is successfully, then the loading is set to false. If an error occurs, then it logs the error and sets error to true and loading to the false. If you see the fetch data method here, the response is getting, and that is converted into the JSON. The result is a JSON. If you see response.json, and this is where we are fetching a data from this API. Okay, and this is getting converted to JSON here. Then we have a set data. So what is set data here? We are updating the data here using a useState. Okay, so here we are updating set data is result. So result is basically whatever data which we have received, it is getting set here. So data will have now whatever data which you have got from the API. Then we are setting up the set loading false. Okay, and if there is an error, we are setting the set error true and set loading false. Okay, before rendering the main content, we check if the data is still loading, or if there was an error. If loading is true, we return a loading message. If error is true, we return an error message. So if you see here, a rendering function. Loading is true, we are returning this loading. If false, then we are returning as a error loading data. If there is no loading or error, the component renders a div containing an unordered list UL, and the data array is mapped over, and for each item, a list item li is created with a unique key and the item's name. So here you can see, if there is an error, it will show error loading. Otherwise, this UL element is getting built here, and we have a for loop here. Okay, for each item, your item is getting added into the li. So how it solves the our problem in the class component? First is a state management with useState. So first we are using useState to manage three state: data, loading, and error. Unlike a class component, there is no need for a constructor or this dot state. The hook makes state management simpler and more intuitive. So first is the use state management with the useState, which is we are getting a more cleaner code here. Then we have a side effects with useEffect. So we use useEffect to handle a side effect like data fetching. The useEffect hook runs the provided function after the component mounts, just like component did mount. That was your lifecycle method, but without the lifecycle complexity. So as we are not using a lifecycle method, the complexity which is associated with lifecycle methods will not be there. So side effects with useEffect. Then we have asynchronous data fetching. So data fetching is done asynchronously using the fetch data function. This function uses async await for better readability and structure. Then the error handling. So error handling is seamlessly integrated within the fetch data function, and if an error occurs, the error state is updated, making it easy to display the error message. So it is easily done, the error handling. And the last is a conditional rendering. So finally we use conditional rendering to display loading indicator. So whenever you want to show a loading indicator or you want to show an error message based on the state, and this approach keeps the UI logic clean and intuitive. Okay, so as you can see now, using hooks drastically reduces the boilerplate code, eliminates the need of a lifecycle methods, and improves the code reliability. This is why hooks are a game changer in React development.
React provides a variety of hooks to manage functionalities. Let's take a quick look at the different types of hooks available.
First is the state hook. So we have this useState hook, which is used to manage state within functional component, whether you need to track user input, form data, or other dynamic values. useState provides a simple way to do it. Then we have a context hook. The context hook, which allows you to access and manipulate context values. This is particularly useful for managing global state like themes or user authentication. Then we have a ref hooks. So the use ref hooks is perfect for creating references to DOM elements or persisting values across renders without triggering re-renders. For example, it can be used to focus input fields or store mutable values. The next one is the effect hook. The useEffect hook handles side effects such as fetching data, updating the DOM, or setting up the subscription. It runs after the render cycle, so making it idle for tasks that need to be happen outside the render flow. Then we have a performance hook. So to optimize a rendering and improve performance, React offers hooks like use memo and use callback. These hooks prevent unnecessary computations and re-renders, ensuring your apps runs smoothly. So performance performance hooks optimize component rendering and the performance. Next one is the resource hook. For resource management, this is used for a resource management. Hooks like useFetch or custom hooks can be used to fetch and manage data. These are essential for building dynamics and interactive applications. So these are the few hook types, and then you can have other hooks also. It React supports creating a custom hooks to encapsulate and reuse logic. This can include utility hooks tailored to your application specific needs.
There is so much more to hooks. Let's deep dive and uncover some advanced hook concepts and possibilities.
Functional components only. Hooks can only be used in functional component. They bring simplicity to the modern React development, eliminating the need for a class component in most of the cases. So hooks can be used only in the functional component, not in the class component. Import from React. So to use hooks, always remember they must be imported from React. It's simple yet essential step for using any hook like useState or useEffect. Call at top level. So hook must be called at the top level of your component. This ensures the order of hook is consistent during every render. The next is avoid in condition. So never use hooks inside the conditional statement. This could break the rules of a React's life cycles and lead to bug. So remember, don't use the hooks in the conditional statement. So optional in the React 16.8 plus. So hooks were introduced in the React version 16.8 as we discussed earlier. They are entirely optional. You can choose to adopt them partially or fully in your project. It's not mandatory to use hooks in your application. Backward compatibility. So they are backward compatible, so you can start using hooks without breaking your existing class component. So it has a backward compatibility. Last one is a direct API for lifecycle features. So lastly, the hooks provides a direct API to manage props, state, context, reference, and lifecycle event all within the functional component. So finally, we talk about the benefits of hooks. Hooks simplifies your code by reducing the boilerplate, making your logic cleaner and more understandable. For building complex user interface, hooks provides a modular approach to manage state and effect efficiently. And the last one is, by using hooks, your code becomes easier to maintain and refactor, especially in the larger application. So hooks are, if you talk about benefits of hooks, it makes simpler and cleaner code, better for complex UIs, and it improves the maintainability.
Let's wrap up with a practical example of using hooks and state together.
So on the screen you are seeing one code. So in this, first we import the useState hook from React. So this import React, we are importing useState from the React. This is basically a traditional step to use state in your functional component. Then here we declare a state variable count and its updater function set count. The useState hook initialize the state to 0 as specified in the parameters. So if you see here, this is your state, this is the update state function, and you are using useState hook and you are initializing with the 0. So this is your initialization of a state. The initial value of the state is passed as an argument to the useState function. To read the current value of the state, we simply use the count variable. In this case, it's dynamically update the text inside the paragraph element. So if you see here, we are reading the state and it's simply reading the variable. The count here we are reading, and it is updating the text, the text here on the screen. Okay. To update the state, we use the set count function. Here, every time the button is clicked, the count is incremented by 1. So if you see here, the on click event of a button, we are calling set count, and what we are doing is simply updating the count plus 1. So set count is your update state function here, which we define in initialization here, count and set count. So set count simply incrementing your count here. So count is your state and it is getting incremented. So this is how you are updating the state. Now to summarize, we are using useState hook, which allows the functional component to manage a state, a feature previously exclusive to class component. So this is how you can use hook and states.
So that's wrap up today's video in our React Fundamentals and Beyond series here on my Site Code Diaries. Today we explore three essential React concepts: states, props, and hooks. These are the building blocks of modern React applications, and understanding them is a key to mastering React development. But we are not stopping here. In our next video, we will bring all these concepts together with a practical example that you can follow along and build yourself. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear how you are progressing with React. And of course, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Join our growing community as we explore more about site code, React, and exciting world of digital experience platform. Thank you. Thanks for watching.